Okay, and I'm going to kick off the webinar. Thanks everyone for joining. So you are attending the Archibus Virtual Users Group hosted by JLL Technologies. We're going to cover a few housekeeping items to get us kicked off. One, all attendees will be joining on mute, and that's just to keep down on the background noise, again, especially since we're all working under different conditions now. Please use the Q&A window. So if you don't see that, check your view options. You should be able to show the Q&A. We are going to have question and answer sections after the version 25 section, and again after the client presentation. So please use the Q&A window, and we will try to address those throughout the presentation. We were hoping that the chat feature would also be available, but it doesn't look like that. So sorry for that technical difficulty. So just keep your questions to the Q&A window, and we'll do our best to address them there. We are recording today's session, so if we don't have any time to address some of that, we will be sharing the follow-up responses as well as the presentation to the webinar. If you want to share it with any of your coworkers, feel free to do so. So that's it for housekeeping. From an agenda, today we're going to be covering two major topics. What's new in Archibus version 25, so it's a very recent release of the product from Archibus and a lot of great new features. And then we'll go into a Q&A session and give you the opportunity to ask us anything about the product, and hopefully we can keep up with those questions. And then we'll move into part two of today's webinar. So please stick around. The University of North Carolina will be presenting how their use of Archibus on the campus as well as the GIS components. Just to introduce who you're going to be hearing from today, myself, Kevin Zimmer, I'm the Executive Director of JLL's Technology Archibus practice, so I lead the Archibus practice for JLL. Our product presenter today will be Brianne Kamens. She's our Archibus Solution Manager. She works under our JLL Sales Enablement team, so she'll be running through the first section of the webinar for you. And then today we also have Lisa Huggins and Suzanne Knight from UNC, Chapel Hill campus, and they are going to be giving us a very good user story around their use of Archibus and how it's integrated with GIS and the benefits they get from that. So we have an action-packed schedule for you today. So we're going to go ahead and kick off. I'm going to introduce our first presenter, Brianne Kamens.
Great. So thanks, Kevin, for the introduction, and thank you to all who have joined our virtual user group during this busy time. So we're excited to show you some of the new features in Archibus version 25.1 and how you can leverage them to simplify the workday. As a friendly reminder, and I know Kevin's already gone through this, but if you do have questions regarding any of the content covered during our overview of version 25.1, please be sure to post them in the Q&A chat button, and we will take some time at the end of this presentation to address them. So while the focus of this presentation is on Archibus's latest release, so version 25.1, I did want to kick things off with how to get the best return on your Archibus upgrade. So whether you are interested in an upgrade to your existing system due to operational needs, such as your current version of Archibus is still dependent on Flash, or you're interested in the latest feature in version 25.1, it's important that certain steps are taken to make sure you get the most out of your upgrade initiative. So whether you are hosted with JLL or you have an on-premise deployment, we always recommend to our clients that they undergo a system gap analysis, in particular if you're a few versions back from the latest release. This analysis process includes looking at new features that can be leveraged out of the box to help support your organization's business needs that may not have been possible before, or required a customization or configuration to fill the gap. Whenever we can remove previous configurations or customizations, it'll ensure that you have an easier upgrade process moving forward. During this time, we also like to support our clients in evaluating their business processes. Our JLL solution consultants bring a wealth of industry and Archibus knowledge to the table to ensure that you are getting the most out of your system while aligning with industry best practices as they evolve over time. To ensure that the transition between systems is going to be seamless, we also examine any modifications that have been made to the Archibus platform. Again, the intent of this is to help leverage new functionalities, but is also an opportunity to further refine how you approach your business and improve your system's overall functionality. So for instance, let's say there were a series of connectors you had running on a regular basis, but based on how often you needed the data to flow from the system of record into Archibus, or even vice versa, Combined with Archibus's new REST APIs that I will get into and talk through in a few slides, the integration could be modified to improve your system's overall performance. Lastly, it's important to note that each gap analysis is going to be different. Sometimes your JLL team might uncover a few minor things that are relatively easy to fix, whereas other times maybe there's going to be a larger level of effort, or there's going to have to be a change that your organization maybe just doesn't have the appetite for right now. Part of our gap analysis process is to ensure that you as the client are completely informed of your system's current state and where there are potential opportunities. As your consultant, we will help you work through the list of opportunities and determine which ones are absolute right now that your organization is prepared for and wants to move forward with, versus scope that can be considered down the road based on your future technology roadmap. Now that we have covered some important topics to keep in mind if you're going to be considering an upgrade, I want to chat through some of the new features in Archibus 25.1 that might be of interest to you. So from an overall system standpoint, Archibus has made improvements that will help you in your upgrade journey now and into the future. So by offering things such as automated database updates with an easier to deploy platform UI, it'll be easier to upgrade your Archibus platform moving forward. Tying into that upgrade process is changes to how frequently Archibus is being updated overall. So aligning with the Archibus Cloud methodology, Archibus will be offering quarterly deployments. The advantage of this is that going forward, Archibus will be undergoing continual product enhancements, and with that, that means system bug testing. So we do recognize that part of our clients' fears in the past when it came to things such as performing upgrades was less regular version releases and therefore not as regular as bug testing. But with this new model, this issue is alleviated. This approach was essentially what was taken leading up to version 25.1, whereby Archibus Cloud was released quarterly with various enhancements and bug fixes applied accordingly, ensuring that version 25.1 that you're going to be seeing today is ready to hit the streets. As the majority of Archibus users utilize the platform for space management purposes, yes, this version is compatible with the latest version of AutoCAD. I knew that that would likely be a question. And then Revit 2021 has also been tested and will be included in this release. While many on the call may be familiar with Archibus connectors, we are excited to announce that Archibus has released a powerful set of REST APIs, making it easier than ever to have Archibus integrate with other systems in your organization. The REST APIs follow all security already in place for your Archibus systems. That includes both user roles as well as any sort of VPA security that you have in place, ensuring that users only have access to the information that was intended for them. In addition to providing a REST API framework, Archibus also offers a series of out-of-the-box REST APIs that are plug and play between your Archibus system and additional software platforms within your organization. These include a generic data access API, making it easy to migrate and export data between systems. So an example of this would be exporting Archibus up-to-date building information for one or potentially several buildings to use in an external system that maybe you might use for GIS or even something such as capital planning. There is also a service desk API if you manage your service requests or tickets in a different system. For instance, if you utilize a platform to allow employees and guests within your organization to make service requests, these can be routed to Archibus and take advantage of the powerful routing and SLA Archibus engine that's already part of the system. The Employee Location API is designed to keep your organization's HR system up to date with Archibus data and vice versa. So when new employees join, you can easily assign them space and have their office information flow seamlessly into your HR system. All of these APIs are flexible in how they are deployed and can be configured to follow specific workflows deemed necessary to your business processes. From a technical perspective, I wanted to cover a few key features offered by the REST APIs and some of the value that they'll bring to your organization and your data integrity. The REST APIs supports an authentication system that's more robust than just something such as a username and password, meaning greater security for you. You also have the ability to push and pull data into your Archibus system, meaning that there's no limitations on which way your data flows depending on your need. Specificity in your queries ensures you can get the data that you need out of the system with restrictions of your choosing. The value in this is that after configuring that REST API, you wouldn't need assistance from JLL necessarily to extract information out of the system. Lastly, date and time values are passed between the systems, ensuring accuracy for things such as service requests, move requests, etc., if the data is going to be shared amongst systems. Overall, Archibus has undergone a major user interface refresh, with the focus of this being on improving the user experience. By listening to you, the client base, Archibus took to heart that their system was a bit antiquated and in need of a facelift, and they achieved just that. Once you get into the system, you'll be able to see it in more detail, but the main navigation is now a hybrid between home pages and Process Navigator. This simplifies the need for organizations to decide which navigation style to go with, as you can now have the best of both worlds. Therefore, user-based home pages can still be built out for navigation purposes, or you can use them to display important metrics to your organization as shown here in the screenshot. To make sure you have optimal screen real estate, the sidebar is designed to be collapsible. And as you gain familiarity with the system, you can elect to leave it collapsed and work off of the icons that they've shown here, and so some of the iconography that they've added throughout the system. JLL has assisted many of their clients in branding Archibus to match their company's visual identity, but it is now easier than ever to make sure Archibus reflects your company. Where the icon My Company here at the top right is located, your company's logo can be readily inserted, making for a more personalized user experience. Everything you see here on this screen is a reflection of the user interface system-wide. A consistent UI is something that sets Archibus apart from other IWMS systems and is intended to improve the platform's usability and make future upgrades even easier. While there have been numerous improvements to the platform, there are 4 key areas that I wanted to highlight, whereby the first 2 we will go through in greater detail within Archibus. So first are the enhancements to the Space Console. The Space Console has been completely redesigned to improve the use of screen space, making sure you see most of what matters most to you, and offers a more modern look. With regard to search capabilities, you can utilize the Smart Search feature that allows you to search on more than just site, building, etc., and will review this functionality within the system. The Advanced Search allows you to get more granular with your criteria and even save searches for future reference, which is beneficial for those who run similar queries time and time again. If you haven't seen version 24.1 yet, then you may not be familiar with the workplace service portion of Archibus. This interface is the employee experience side of Archibus and is designed to empower employees to make requests in one centralized location for things such as maintenance requests, conference room bookings, hoteling into the office, and even making move requests. Within version 25.1, Archibus has expanded the capabilities of requesting a service by making it more configurable to meet your actual business needs. The catalog can be set up with, for 3 tiers, assisting you in guiding a user to the correct request type, and users can also enter in free-form text into the search bar to get to the correct request type. The new reservations calendar console takes the console view that we all know and love that's across Archibus to make room reservations a more seamless process. As many people in organizations have ample familiarity with something such as Outlook as well as Microsoft Exchange, the reservations calendar console has similarities to Outlook and speaks to the powerful capabilities of this application when used in conjunction with the extension for Microsoft Exchange. Not only can you book rooms in the console, but for attendees, you can actually pull in their calendars to check their availability. So you're able to compare what an employee's calendar is versus that room calendar all in one centralized location, rather than having to manage 2 separate platforms to meet one end goal. Lastly, the maintenance mobile app has seen a refresh with how craftspersons perform their hour logging. By going into a work order, they can easily start the stopwatch from the main screen to actually auto-record their time spent on a given job. While a stopwatch feature was previously available in the mobile framework, this feature used to be buried in the actual time entry portion. Once the stopwatch is started, if a craftsperson navigates back to the main interface, it will show that the job is in progress, preventing them from starting multiple jobs at once. The majority of the improvements that I've reviewed have been driven by you, the client, which we have shared on your behalf to Archibus over time. Archibus values this communication for the product's overall success and are now taking it a step further with Archibus UserVoice. Archibus UserVoice is a platform designed to encourage your comments and feedback regarding the product's future direction. You can easily access it when logged into Archibus, therefore there is no need to remember another URL. Once in the site, you can add your own ideas, view others' ideas that have been generated from other Archibus users, and then cast your vote on what you would like to see make it into future product iterations. While not all ideas may make it into Archibus, especially if an idea is more business process driven rather than software, it is a great resource to go to and get inspired and learn about how others are using the system. So prior to getting into the actual system demo, which is what you've all been waiting for, we do have a poll we wanted to review. So with that, I'm going to pass things over to Kevin to review our polling question.
Yeah, and since one of the enhancements of Archibus in the last few releases is really about the workplace apps and getting Archibus out to other parts of your organization, we thought we'd ask, has your organization opened up Archibus access for your entire organization? There's a few choices to select from, so if you can give them a quick read through and submit your vote, that would be fantastic. We'll leave it open just for a few more seconds here, and then we'll prepare here to change back over to Brianne, and she's going to go right into the live demonstration of Archibus version 25. All right, so Brianne, if you're ready, we'll turn it back over to you and we'll jump right into the application.
Perfect. Okay, so everybody should be seeing that I switched my screen. And so before we actually go into some of the more product specific items, such as the overhauls of the space console and then the workplace portal, I just wanted to do a quick user interface recap. So as you can see that my navigation system is going to be primarily on the left side. So this is again, that more process navigator type view. So users can still elect to add processes and tasks into these buckets that you see here in the main screen in the middle, in addition to metrics. And again, it is totally going to be based on preference. Users can also assign multiple home pages. So as you can see here, it's given me a variety of different home pages by being logged in, with the ability to toggle between different views by selecting these actual three dots at the top of right-hand side of the screen. Within the actual process navigator, I can collapse or expand my view, again, depending on my preference, in which when I do that collapse, you can see that all of that iconography remains there. So as you become more familiar with the new system, you can totally elect to have it so that you're just going to see those icons. And as you hover over those icons, it'll give you information about what each icon is for with respect to the domain it belongs to. The search functionality has also become more user-friendly. So if I go and type in a specific item, and of course it's going to log me out because I have been out for too long. So if I go back in and actually perform that search, so if I search for something such as the actual space console, what you'll see is that the results are going to show in the drop down below. So rather than having that additional window pop up and kind of taking up some of that screen real estate, it's going to be all part of that actual search bar. One aspect that Archibus is well known for is its actual help text. And one of the things is now it's going to be easier to access than ever before. By actually drilling through the process navigator, so clicking on the domain that you're interested in, and then you can actually then go into all of the specific applications or all of their processes, you'll see that there's going to be a series of these folders. And those are the processes in a given area of Archibus. By right-clicking on a given process, you'll see that this little help text icon is going to come up, and that'll direct me to the help text that's going to be associated with this area. Lastly, each application has a series of shortcuts that are going to be at the top. So it's this shortcuts area that's here at the very top of the screen. These shortcuts are based off of what Archibus users commonly access, and the intent of them is to improve your overall navigation experience. So with that, I'm actually going to go and hop into the space console from the shortcuts area. So as the Space Console loads, one of the things that I want to point out and that you'll see is that it's going to load completely different than previous versions. So once it's loaded, you'll see that I have access to all of the buildings and floor information in one panel. Therefore, it reduces your need to even search depending on the size of your portfolio. If you still elect to search to locate what you are looking for, you can use the actual smart search bar that's located at the top left. You'll see here that it lists common search criteria that we are all used to pull up a building. So things such as site, building, floor, division, department, etc. But you can now enter this text in free form to generate a list that matches your criteria. So for instance, let's say you want to know where the finance department is located. So if I go and simply type in the word finance, I'm going to get a listing of all the buildings and their respective floors where finance is located, and then I have the ability to go and choose one accordingly. You'll notice that as I've actually gone and selected that building, and it's loaded, one of the features that's been added is that the floor plan is going to load immediately with all of the department highlights already loaded. The intent of this is to save the user time by having those highlights already applied. Highlights can still be viewed and changed by going into the selecting the highlights option, and you can choose a variety of different highlight options here, in addition to adding on that second layer of reporting or highlight features with those border highlights. Another feature associated with the highlight capabilities includes the ability to toggle on or off specific highlights. So sticking with finance, let's say I want to compare where finance is located in relation to human resources. I can simply hold Shift on my keyboard and select finance, and then select human resources. And if I click it, there we go, and have only the highlights for those two departments visible. Going back into the search capabilities, I can also go and enter a more detailed query within the advanced search area. And I have the option within here to also go and save a search. So again, if I wanted to pull up, let's say, a particular building, I can save this actual search as MC05 and perform that search, have that search information then pop up. And then if I go into that recent search section, it's going to have that saved, what I had just already searched and then saved, so MC05, as well as my previous search is going to show up in that recent search section, which is that finance search that I had conducted. With that, we are now going to do a quick walkthrough of the Workplace portal. So the Workplace portal is a web application, and so nothing needs to actually be downloaded from an app store. That means it's easy for employees to access a variety of platforms. It's easy for employees, to use and access across a variety of platforms, including computers as well as mobile devices. So if you do have certain employees that are using Web Central and have access to it, they can access the Workplace portal by going into Workplace Services and clicking on Workplace. When they do that, the view that it's going to take them to is what's referred to as the service catalog. And the intent of the service catalog allows them to toggle through their actual requests. So you can see, they can see a listing of their service requests, meeting reservations, and workspace reservations, in addition to creating a series of requests as well. So you have options here for things such as meeting space booking, workspace booking, locating people, just general maintenance requests, etc. Alternatively, users can also access their own main login page and get that overview on one screen. So the alternative view for that would be this main login page here. As Workplace is an employee-focused interface, you'll see that it's going to have a more simplistic look and feel compared to that within Web Central. Employees can use it to not only make requests, but also look up important information. So by chance, maybe you're looking for a colleague in your department. Within this actual department area, you can go and you can search for an employee and bring up that employee's information, and it's going to provide their workspace for you. If you want to search the organization as a whole for a particular employee, you can use this work search or the search engine that's at the very top to look up an employee by name. By doing that, you can also then go and click on that respective employee, and it's going to show you their location with respect to that floor plan. So again, speaking to how Archibus is integrated with all of its information. You can also search for a variety of other types of information within the search bar at the top, so things such as departments, buildings, etc. So for instance, if I want to go and look up a particular building, I can type in that building name. It's going to give me a listing of equipment for that building, as well as the building information. And when I go and actually load that building and I go and choose a particular floor plan, it's going to bring in all of those highlights that we would see within something such as Space Console. In this particular instance, it's bringing in that department information. Therefore, this could be used for things such as wayfinding purposes. The Create a Request menu has seen the largest change within the actual workplace portal, whereby, as mentioned, you can actually break your service offerings down into 3 tiers to help clients navigate which service to choose. So an example of that would be going into something such as general maintenance. So if I require maintenance to be conducted within my organization, I can simply go and click on general maintenance, and you'll see that it's going to give me a variety of different services that I can now go and choose that are going to be more trade specific or task specific at the end of the day. The other piece is with this actual service catalog view, Archibus has taken some cues from social media platforms, whereby they're going off the principle that a picture speaks 1,000 words. Therefore, you have the ability to choose which icons are going to be associated to each level of your tier for improved usability. Now, if based on how you break out your service catalog and the different offerings with the iconography and clients still can't find what they're looking for, they can type information at the very top of this actual search bar and have the correct option come up for them. Once they actually do go and click on an offering, again, it'll take them through the appropriate tier of that service catalog. But when it gets to the actual request screen, you'll see that now there's also the capabilities to add some custom verbiage that you can communicate to your employee base. So for this particular instance, this is a temperature or heating or cooling issue, and it's telling the client that we're apologizing that they're uncomfortable, and we're giving them information about that service level that somebody will respond within the next 24 hours. So with that, that concludes our version 25.1 overview. And so now I'm going to go back and pass things over to Kevin so that we can dive right into the Q&A.
Yeah, great. And I was doing my best to keep up with a few of the questions as they were coming in, but by all means, if anything that you saw Brianne demonstrate today is sparking questions, please use the Q&A window and submit those. Any of them that we need clarification on, we'll be getting those responses back to you after the fact. But if you're not able to see the Q&A window, I'll just go through a few of them. One of the first questions is around compatibility with later versions of Oracle. And yes, just with Archibus 25.1, they're constantly maintaining compatibility with the latest versions of SQL Server, as well as Oracle and AutoCAD and Revit. So Brianne mentioned the increased compatibility with AutoCAD, but specifically to the question on Oracle 19C, the answer is yes. The latest version is compatible with Oracle 19C. The dashboard views, there was a question on dashboard views, and I believe that's referring to the home pages and the charting and the metrics that are available when the users sign in. Those are controlled with the Archibus menus, and that can actually be done at the role or user level. So you might find where the role can solve the majority of your user assignment, and then you only use the user level to address those one-off scenarios where 1 or 2 users might need additional menus that everybody else in their role doesn't. Maybe they're maintaining multiple, wearing multiple hats and needing multiple access points. So you can assign those home pages at both the role and user level. There's a follow-up question on the calendar. Awesome. Archibus has done a lot of investment in the hoteling and reservations area, especially with enabling the employees. But the calendar feature is also a new update with 25.1. The calendar itself is what you saw was the Archibus calendar that's integrated in the product. But Archibus also has integrations with Outlook. So there is an Outlook plugin as well as an Exchange server integration. So the Exchange server integration is what allows you to have bidirectional. You can communicate back and forth from the Exchange server with Archibus reservations. So it makes it a little more seamless for your employee base. So there are integrations for both Outlook and the Exchange server. A little clarification on 24.1 with Oracle 19C. So the way Archibus does that is they test the latest versions completely for compatibility, and then they post a compatibility matrix, which I'm happy to share separately. But they don't go back and test all the previous versions against that. So they leave those as untested. It doesn't mean, though, that it won't work. So what I'll do for you, I think specifically, is get with our technical managers and see if we have any other precedents where another client has already successfully deployed 24.1 on Oracle 19C. So it's a very technical question, but happy to see if we have any precedents across our client base. All right. There is a question on single sign-on, and yes, Archibus is single sign-on compliant. And in the written response there, I'll add a little bit more in that it's across the platform. So the single sign-on applies with the Archibus Mobile. So if you have craftspersons in the field using Archibus Mobile, that is also single sign-on compliant. But definitely the Archibus Web Central platform and Smart Client platform are single sign-on compatible. We have a lot of different single sign-on solutions that we integrate with, but of course some of the main ones, Okta is pretty prevalent nowadays, so we see a lot of Okta, but we do have other experience as well. So if you have a specific single sign-on provider that you're questioning, by all means, submit those questions to us, and we're happy to find the answer. The quarter releases is a new thing with version 25.1. So Archibus started the quarterly release cycle with the cloud product or with the SaaS product. And now with 25.1, they've extended that into Archibus Enterprise. So we will be seeing quarterly releases with Archibus Enterprise, which just means when we're approaching upgrades, we need to be leveraging as much of those new upgrade features that Brianne mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. But one major decision point is there anything in that quarter release that is going to add value to your organization? And we're here to help you go through that analysis and make sure that you're getting something from each of those releases if you decide to move forward. Okay. I don't believe, and I think Michael posted an answer here for the printing improvements. I don't believe there's anything specific to printing, but we did see some printing improvements in version 24.1, so I'm not sure of your current version, but definitely if you haven't seen the latest printing improvements, there are additional ad hoc controls that you can use out of the Space Console that you can change on the fly as you're creating the print job. And those were not in previous releases. I don't think we saw that until version 24.1. So depending on what version you have, there may actually be printing improvements starting with version 24.1. All right. So I think that's it on the Archibus version 25. So Brianne, thank you very much for your presentation and for some of that content leading up to the demo. Hopefully everyone got a few little nuggets out of that presentation on how 25.1 may help you. I do want to make one last little point there. Keep in mind that if your organization is still on an older version of Archibus that is using Flash, you do have to be aware that Flash is going away and it won't be supported in all of the major browsers. And your IT department will most likely not support all the one-off plugins that may show up. So if you're on an older version of Archibus, you may need to look at an upgrade anyways, so that you don't lose any of the features that you may be losing when Flash goes away from the browsers. So just keep that in mind. If you're not sure, Flash was removed from the Archibus product in version 23.2. So if you're on an older version than 23.2, then reach out. We want to have a discussion and make sure that you're going to still be able to see your floor plans after Flash is removed from the browsers. And with that, I think we're going to start making a transition here. So again, thank you, Brianne, for your presentation. We're going to move on to the second portion of our webinar series today. Today, I'd like to introduce, and we're just switching presenters here. So Lisa is going to be taking over the presentation. There we go. I want to make a quick introduction, and then we'll be able to jump right in. Okay. So today we have Suzanne Knight, and Suzanne has been with the university for 23 years, and more importantly, was one of the original team members when the university decided to deploy Archibus back in 2006. She is the Space Information Analyst for the University, North Carolina Chapel Hill campus, managing currently over 20 million square feet of floor plans in the system. So quite a large deployment, and of course a large campus here in North Carolina, hence why they're going to be showing off some of their GIS capabilities. Also helping today is Lisa Huggins. She's the IWMS project manager. Again, she's been with the university for 15 years, but 3 years as the IWMS project manager, and then 12 additional years as the GIS coordinator for the deployment. So Lisa and Suzanne are going to walk us through how the University of North Carolina is leveraging Archibus. So take it away, ladies. Thank you.
Hello, all. Thank you for joining. Brianne, that was a wonderful presentation. I'm looking forward to learning more about 25.1. This is Suzanne coming to you live from my dining room, keeping my fingers crossed that my cats don't start singing the song with their people. Today, we're going to start with an overview of the university, then move into the challenges and solution, the lessons learned, the future roadmap, and then have time for some questions. So first of all, we're just going to learn about the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. UNC was founded in 1789 and is the flagship university for the UNC system, which contains 16 universities and the North Carolina School of Science and Math. There are 30,000 undergraduate and graduate students being served by 12 colleges and schools. These include a medical school, a law school, School of Education, and a School of Public Health, to name a few. 12,000 faculty and staff are required to keep the university running smoothly. The main campus sits on 800 acres with an additional 4,200 acres throughout Orange County. We have over 20 million gross square feet of space with over 500 buildings and just over 58,000 rooms. We've produced 2 Nobel Prize winners at the university, Dr. Sandkar for chemistry in 2015 and Dr. Smithies for medicine in 2007. And although this last year was one for the record, the worst record I must say, I can't leave out our basketball program, which has earned 7 national titles, 6 for the men and 1 for the women. Some of you may have been enjoying The Last Dance on ESPN featuring the legendary Michael Jordan. He came from UNC, and we taught him all he knows. Go Heels. Teaching and research are part of the mission statement for the university. We have 205 general purpose classrooms, which are controlled by the university registrar, and an additional 163 classrooms controlled by other departments or schools. There are 4 large library buildings on campus with 10 specialty libraries around campus, such as law, music, or science. Research is also a large component of our campus, and we conduct $1.14 billion in research activity annually. So who are we? Our team is the Facilities Technology Group, or FTG, and we're housed in Facilities Planning and Design, which is under the larger umbrella of Finance and Operations. We maintain several data-driven systems such as Archibus for the space data and floor plans, and also tracking the locations of our as-built drawings, specifications, and final reports, and the metadata associated with them. We use GIS for mapping and campus wayfinding, and the Facility Condition Assessment Program, which tracks deficiencies on campus and helps direct how renovation money is prioritized to keep our campus running. FTG is responsible for maintaining the floor plan drawings and approving coordinator changes. We rely on over 200 departmental coordinators to help keep our space data accurate and current. They are asked to update or verify their data quarterly. The campus users access floor plans and reports through the JLL tool called OSIS. Our Archibus data is used in a variety of ways on campus, from internal analysis and reporting, satisfying state reporting requirements, and as a baseline for the indirect cost recovery, which is performed by the Office of Sponsored Research every 3 to 5 years. So how did we get to where we are now? I started working with the university in 1996, and at the time we were using a mainframe system that had been created by the ITS department. We spent our year making edits to the data and preparing to send out surveys to the departments. We had ITS print the reports and we mailed them to the departments along with a red pen. They updated and mailed them back, and we started adding the changes to the mainframe. This was a tedious process and took all year to complete. Our data was always behind. We started looking for a new tool, and the first one purchased was more for the indirect cost folks, but we were requested to use it, although it wasn't easy or user-friendly, and still did not give us a tool that we could scale to our campus users. So we started the process again, knowing that Archibus was what we wanted. Now, to build a business case to allow us to purchase it. In 2006, we were successful and were partnered with JLL. We took our time to develop a system that met all of our needs, spending the majority of that time on the space survey tool. In 2008, we rolled the survey tool out to our department users, and they started updating their data in a web tool for the first time. In 2010, after meeting some reporting requirements and security concerns for the School of Medicine, they gave up their homegrown system and joined the Archibus world. We continued for 10 years until we decided an upgrade to the newest Archibus was needed. So we went from 19.1 to 23.2 in 2019. That upgrade came with the geospatial extension for Esri and opened a whole world of possibilities to the university, which Lisa is going to share now. Thank you.
Thanks, Suzanne. That was a great overview of our university and our facilities team. I would like to add that there was one glaring omission about Michael Jordan in The Last Dance, and that was that he got his degree from Carolina in geography. And no, we're not here to talk too much about Michael Jordan, but we're here to talk more about geography and Archibus. Our challenge was to extend the functionality of the Archibus space data with GIS capabilities. Archibus is a great platform for collecting, managing, and reporting space data. We don't want to replace that. We don't want to change that, but we do want to extend that with additional functionality. So why GIS? What do we gain? First, visualization. One of Esri's tagline is the science of where, and I really like this. It's a basic principle of GIS. When we can look at information on a map rather than in tabular form, we can visualize the where. And while we can visualize where we are in a building on a single floor plan, by having all the data in GIS, we can start to visualize where across campus. We can ask, where are all my elevators on campus? Where are all my elevators that are due for inspection this month? If we're hosting a tour that ends at McCorkle Place, we may ask, where are all the first floor conference rooms surrounding this space? Second, reporting. Esri has an extensive suite of intuitive, off-the-shelf web applications such as ArcGIS Online's Operation Dashboards and other web mapping applications. These applications require no programming to configure and can be stood up quite quickly. We'll take a look at a couple of the operation dashboards that we've configured a little bit later. And then we have analysis. GIS allows us to use proximity, overlay, and routing to analyze data and answer complex questions. How far apart are the lactation rooms on campus? If we're planning for a hurricane and thinking about flooding, where are all of my basement level mechanical rooms, and are they within 100 feet of a floodplain? And last, with a comprehensive floor plan layer, we now have a reference layer on which we can map new assets if a group decides GIS is the best place to do that. So when we set out to do this on our own in 2015, we were faced with a few challenges. We have over 1,000 floors on campus and therefore over 1,000 CAD drawings. That's a lot of drawings. So to get started, our campus surveyor georeferenced all of them so they would overlay with our GIS buildings. These georeference files overlaid, and that was a great first step, but that just provided line work and annotation. And so we still didn't have the room information such as room type or department. And these files were separate files, so there was no reference to one another, and so no analysis was possible. And lastly, these CAD files couldn't be published to our existing web mapping applications that field crews and desktop users were already utilizing. So we started to think about how we could use Esri tools to export to GIS. And we configured a tool, but found it wouldn't reliably run through all those 1,000 drawings. So we were left needing more. And in 2017, we saw the geospatial extension for Esri at the Archibus Nexus conference, and we requested a demo from our business partner, JLL. And because we had strong support from our leadership, and in particular our director, we made the business case, and we got the extension wrapped into our upgrade to Archibus version 23.2. We worked hand in hand with JLL, Archibus, and our facilities GIS coordinator to set up the framework and configure the tools. All of these parties were focused on a solution and were instrumental in the success of the project. And as a last step, an important step, JLL trained us to administer the tools ourselves so that we could maintain and make adjustments in the future. And we just put this to use. Just this last week, we decided we needed to add another field to export, and we were able to do so in-house. So I'll have to admit, when we first contracted to purchase and configure the extension, much of how it was going to work was a mystery to me, how we were going to get this exported to GIS. But after working with the team, my understanding of the process is much clearer. And I wanted to share some of the highlights on how it works in case your organization is considering the extension. At first, we had to set up the schema in GIS, the place in which the data would go. So we opted to start with the provided Archibus data model. We did add some additional key fields that were unique to UNC, and we deleted the fields that we did not need. We then configured security for the ArcGIS database and the REST service that we used to edit the data. Again, we relied heavily on our GIS coordinator to set up all of this. We were very appreciative of her expertise throughout the process. And this is a screenshot of the connector properties in Web Central. And I hope you can make it out, though it's quite small. But the point, it's very straightforward. You simply have your source field from Archibus and your destination field in GIS. This is how you configure what goes where. And in terms of how the extension was going to take 1,000 separate CAD files, which had no coordinate system, and merge them into a comprehensive map for our campus, well, this is where the AFM drawings table comes in, which is, I have a screenshot here. Each drawing file is listed in this table, and we were charged with populating the X and Y of the insertion point and the rotation angle of each, and each record displays that. One lesson that we learned here was that the method we originally used to georeference the drawings was not the method required here. So we still had some additional work to do to get this piece completed. So maybe if you haven't georeferenced and you are thinking about going through this process, to look into what is required before you set out to do that. Want to mention some speed bumps or items for consideration. In configuring, we had to modify our authentication settings in ArcGIS Server. And because there was no compatibility matrix at the time of our configuration, we had issues with our version of ArcGIS Server and had to do some hot fix and patching. And some of the issues that we encountered were related to a lack of documentation on how to work with the GIS extension. On the AutoCAD side, we learned through trial and error that ARCs don't translate to GIS. So we ended up with some very weird room shapes, lots of triangles, and had to go back and modify those arcs and manually add the vertices along the curved lines. We had some floors that wouldn't publish at all, and that was because we had some objects on layers that weren't permitted. And lastly, we had some records that wouldn't publish, and we traced that down to some special characters that were in our room description field. So we had some cleanup to do. But one of our biggest speed bumps was missing a key part of our workflow. The top half of this diagram shows the workflow we had initially accounted for in the project. So you have a floor plan, you're editing with Smart Client extension for AutoCAD, and you publish the drawing. That pushes the data to GIS via a GeoJSON and REST service. And we did this for all 1,000 floors and had a current comprehensive floor plan layer in GIS. We did a victory dance and thought we were done until the day came when we'd have another floor plan edit, and we'd go in, we'd edit, we'd publish again. But then it struck us. What about all those edits to the database that weren't graphical and that were coming from our Smart Client and Campus survey tool? How do we keep the data synced if this workflow wasn't accounted for? So we went back to the team, and in no time we had a solution, a good solution. So we set up some additional training with JLL, and they trained us to configure other Archibus connectors. This wasn't a GIS connector. In this case, it was a SQL to SQL connector that we have that runs nightly to update just the data records. It's independent of geometry, but just to go ahead and update all those records so we can catch all of those other edits that are coming through Smart Client in our survey tool. So with that, I'm going to try to do a live demo to show you a couple of the Esri operation dashboards that we set up. I want to stress that, as I mentioned in the beginning, that there's really nice reporting and visualization tools in Esri's suite of products. And I'm going to demonstrate just a couple of those. And again, these took no programming. They were just configured by us. Let's see if I can get this fired up. So this first example is the UNC Space Management Dashboard. And here you can see in the middle, we have a map that displays our room data across campus. And the second column, or the second area of the web application, you can see metrics, some nice charts and graphs that display our room data. And on the left-hand side, we have filters, and this is what we use to control and filter the data. So if we were to go to the dashboard, and let's see, I'm going to select Manning Hall. You can select by, you can type in the text, the building name, or the number. We'll select Manning Hall. And if you notice, my metrics begin to update, the map zoomed to the location. I'm going to further filter this to the second floor so we can start to make sense of it in a 2D environment. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So now you're seeing the second floor rooms in Manning Hall. You'll notice that the room area metric filtered to that floor for that building. So we have 12,000 square feet. You can also toggle here from total to assignable square feet. We have the number of rooms, 49 rooms on that floor, and 32 assignable. And we have 273 workstations on that floor. The charts, you can see that we have a breakdown of our departments on that floor. So we have these 5 departments occupying space there. We can also change that to the space by division, room type, and a room category. Any of these we can pop out to see more information, so we can see how much space is dedicated to classroom facilities on that floor, etc. I'll close that back up. We can further filter, so we can filter by building, floor, we can filter by division, department, room category, and room type. So if I'm only interested in that floor, I want to summarize on info and library sciences. Again, all the metrics update to reflect that. And if you notice the map, we have a filter of just the rooms now belonging to information and library sciences. If I'm interested in just seeing my office spaces, I can filter that. So this has been a nice reporting tool, a nice handy tool that's intuitive and that folks can go to get some information about our space information on campus. The second dashboard I want to share with you is our classroom dashboard. And we just set this up 2 weeks ago in planning for students to come back to campus after COVID-19. We have tabs at the top so we can look at general purpose classrooms, all classrooms, and non-general purpose classrooms. And so for general purpose classrooms, you can see we have the building, the floors, a list of all of the rooms. Down here we have the pictures for those classrooms, and of course we have the map, and some metrics here on the right-hand side. So if I'm going to, well, we're already on it, but let's just say we're going to pick Dye Hall here. So we can see that there's 25 classrooms in Dye Hall. If I want to further filter, and let's just go to the second floor. Now I have 9 classrooms. You can see, again, same as the other dashboard, these metrics all update as I filter and select. So here's my list of rooms. If I want to pick a room, I zoom in, and now you can start to see paths of travel and important room types. This is, again, information that's coming from Archibus through our connector. So we can see our paths of travel. We can see we've picked out some of the important building room types that might be accessed by students as they come back to campus, and ones that we need to take into account as we plan their paths of travel in terms of physical distancing. And you might also notice that we've also brought in other layers. And so this is, again, is one of the powerful things with GIS. We can bring in other layers and overlay. So we have a layer of accessible entrances in GIS. So we brought those into this dashboard too. So now we can start to visualize the entrances, the paths of travel, the restrooms, the stairways, the elevators, all the things that might come into play when we're planning. Another layer that's being currently worked on in another GIS application is staging areas, where we might queue students as they wait for their classroom or their building to be cleared out and cleaned before they can enter and come to their classroom. So, that's another, because with GIS we're all working in the same coordinate system. That's another layer that we could bring into this map, and it'll help with planning and communication as we plan for students to come back to campus. And that wraps up my demo. Let's see, I'm going to close out of here, and Kevin, I think, is going to take another polling question. Let's see if I get back.
Yep, so if you wanted to go back to the PowerPoint, and I'll kind of kick it off.
Sure.
And just to prep you, Lisa, we are getting a few questions about some of your GIS components. So when we get to Q&A, I might be putting you on the spot there. But before we get there, we're going to start with this polling question. So how closely do you partner with your organization's GIS department? We are partnering with them and leveraging Archibus GIS extension, so a full deployment similar to UNC. We are leveraging our internal GIS team, but it's not integrated with Archibus. So maybe your organization has GIS capabilities and are using it across the real estate and facilities teams, but just not with Archibus. We are not using GIS at all, or how do you spell GIS? So just a few seconds here, we'll leave this polling question up. But as you can see, with Archibus's GIS integration, there's a lot of power for integrating the spatial data with your Archibus FMN employee data, whether you're locating, whether you're wayfinding. And we've also seen other deployments where you start to overlay capital project information on top of these maps. You can start to overlay FM issues and trending issues across campuses. So there's a lot of power with the extension and trying to leverage your Archibus data across your GIS maps. So with that, we're going to close the poll. Appreciate that. I'm going to turn it right back over, and we're going to go through a few lessons learned that were along the deployment.
Great, thanks, Kevin. Okay, so what are our key takeaways? To be flexible. We set up a system process to align with our business process, only to realize we hadn't caught all the pieces. So be flexible and be ready to incorporate more processes to cover it all. And every step of the way, it's an iterative process. We backed up, we started over, we backed up again, started over. It's all part of the process. And every implementation is different. We heard this from JLL. We all have different versions of ArcGIS Server and Archibus, and different firewalls and different security rules to contend with. Another key takeaway was collaborate with peers. So this was a very collaborative project. We worked hand in hand with JLL, Archibus, our stakeholders, and technical resources. And they were all integral to the success of the project. and ask questions of those peers and really get to know this extension as well as other connectors in Archibus. We've found already that there's so much power in the connectors and having this data where we can leverage it across systems. For our future roadmap, we're currently working on an upgrade to the UNC survey tool, and we will include an ability to collect occupancy data. So once we start getting this data in, we'll start to begin work on an occupancy dashboard or other web application, perhaps a vacancy web application. And we also want to look at how we can export line work to GIS to show more details around the door locations and stairwells. We have, rooms now, polygons, but we don't have the doors visualized in GIS, so that would be helpful. Also on our roadmap, as we build out our 3D campus model, we want to work to integrate room data. And we are recognizing already that we may need some more Archibus data updates. So now that we can locate where are all the lactation rooms across campus, we've recognized that we don't have that as a room type. So maybe we want to circle back and add that. And that's just one of many that will come as people realize that we can quickly now make these maps that show room types across campus or whatever the attribute may be. And we're also working to integrate Archibus GIS and our AssetWorks asset management system. We envision a future of integration where we leverage our various business systems to best take advantage of the strengths and capabilities in each, because each does have its own strengths and capabilities. And that does wrap up our presentation. And as Kevin said, we'll take some questions and answers.
That sounds great. Look, Lisa, Suzanne, thank you so much for all your time and effort that you put into this presentation. I'm still learning things about your deployment that I didn't know, and I think that's wonderful. So you guys are definitely a power user in the Archibus community and been an Archibus platform for many of years. It's clear with the maturity of your deployment and what you've been able to accomplish for managing the campus. So kudos to you and your teams and the work that you've done with the Archibus platform. Don't go far though, because I do have some questions coming in that are specific to your university, and I thought maybe you guys can help address those. So what I'm going to do, there are other questions that are back from our Archibus version 25 content. I'm going to circle back to those. So if you asked a few of those questions, or if you want to hear those responses, please just stay on the line with us a few more minutes, and I'm going to circle back to those. But while we're fresh off of the UNC presentation, I want to start with those first. All right. One of the first questions, does UNC use Archibus across all the campuses in the UNC system, or is it just specific campuses? And I think we can answer that, and I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Lisa, but UNC manages the application campus by campus. So it is at the flagship campuses, but some of the other campuses are not on the platform that I'm aware of. So Lisa, was there a strategy with managing across the whole university system?
Actually, I'm going to bring Suzanne in to see. She's the one that exports out to our general administration group. Suzanne, do you know where it goes from?
I don't believe that GIS is in every campus. Is that what we're asking?
I think about Archibus right there. That was the question, right? Archibus is across the UNC system.
There are several
right.
UNC campuses that have Archibus. I know UNC Charlotte does. Duke has it, although they're not part of the UNC system. And then there's other tools, like I think Greensboro has Tririga. So there's a lot of tools out there, but Archibus is not a standard across the system.
There you go. And I think that's what they're looking for. That's coming in from another university system in a different state. And of course, we do have some university systems that will make a selection across for the whole system. There's a lot of advantages there. Of course, reporting up any F&A survey that can be reported up as well. You start to get that consolidated system level metrics out of the system. But some of the university systems aren't deploying at that level, and they're just doing it campus by campus. So that's what we've seen with the UNC system. The next question around the UNC deployment is around the integration with BIM and what you're doing there. So there's a written response there, but we have started working with UNC on some of the lifecycle process and putting together BIM standards. But as of right now, that they're not taking advantage of Revit. But Lisa or Suzanne, is there anything specific around a path towards Revit on your side?
Well, you mentioned the life cycle and the BIM standards that we have. We have not taken the next step with that yet, but it is in our future plans to, start receiving data, put it in our contracts, and then, the next step would be integrating that. But we're not there yet.
Yeah, great, and that's what we see from a lot of our clients, to be honest. It's not usually 100% migration out of one into the other. It's usually a hybrid inventory that stays in place for a number of years, and it's based on when you're doing your capital improvements and what contractors you're using and what those standards are going into those projects. We'll start to set what the outputs are coming back into your IWMS platform. So we do see a lot of mixed inventory, and Archibus is perfect for that because you can have some of your campus in Revit models and other parts of your campus in AutoCAD. And of course, with your ArcGIS integration, be able to leverage those 2D overlays on top of your geospatial data as well. So Archibus is a great platform for going through that life cycle. Just wanted to go through, and I'm just looking for specific ArcGIS and Esri. There's a question here. Were there any specific updates to the ArcGIS and Esri platform coming out with version 25.1? We did post the what's new information. So that's a great artifact. If you go to the Q&A window and click on that link, there's all of the what's new information that comes out in each release of Archibus is itemized there. I don't remember any specific to the GIS extension, but to the point that Lisa made, every ArcGIS deployment has its own nuances, right? You're on a different version, you have different security protocols in place. So there are definitely nuances each instance that we have to accommodate. And then the level of data at which you exchange between that integration is also specific to each deployment. So keep that in mind when you're going through this. Some of the key stakeholders that are a part of making an Archibus and ArcGIS integration successful. UNC did a great job highlighting the multiple stakeholders that it takes to make that successful. Okay, I think that's it. So I'll quit putting you on the spot there, UNC. Thank you very much for all your contributions to today's webinar. I am going to address a few more of the version 25 and platform questions that came in. So just to get back to some of those questions, while I'm going through those questions, I'm going to leave Lisa and Suzanne's contact information on the screen. So if you saw something in the GIS deployment that you feel like would help your organization, they're very willing to offer you any advice and help you through that journey. So if you wanted to reach out directly, their information is available for you. Time frames of release 25.1 was one of the questions. The product was just released on May 12th. So if it's something you're interested in and moving forward with, just contact your current JLL representatives and we'll help you discuss a path forward with an upgrade. But the product did just officially release for clients on May 12th. Some technical questions in the Q&A around Java versions that are supported. Archibus does 25.1 supported up to OpenJDK 11 or JRE 1.8. So again, a very technical question, but hopefully that is assisting someone. There's a lot of questions around the REST APIs that we may use a follow-up for, but the REST APIs were launched in 25.1. They do extend our ability to integrate with other CRE and facility systems that you may have. And there's some out-of-the-box REST API integrations that come with it. But because of the REST APIs, it actually they're flexible for any number of data sources. So if you have been wanting to improve on your integrations and get them up to a higher security standard, or whatever the case is, or just open up Archibus data to other parts of your organization, by all means, this is a great time to take advantage of Archibus's new REST APIs. All right. There's some specific questions around some of the features of version 25, but I think in reference to time, we're gonna close the Q&A session, and we'll get back to you specifically with some written response, as well as maybe some follow-up phone calls to make sure all your questions are answered. But I want to thank everyone for your time today, taking time out of your busy work days. I know we're all faced with a lot of challenges as we prepare to return to our campuses and to our offices. Some of our folks on the line are already back at the office or never left the office. We do have a lot of folks that are part of first responders and healthcare facilities that never actually left the facility. So, but as we prepare to return to work after this pandemic and figure out what's the right way to leverage our technology and our processes to ensure that our employees feel safe enough to come back into the workplace, there's a lot of things going on in your daily lives, and just wanted to take that extra minute to thank you for taking time out of your day for today's webinar. If you do have any follow-up questions, feel free to submit those directly to your contacts, and we'll be happy to get back with you. And that's it for today. This webinar was recorded, so we'll make it available if it's something you want to share with anybody else in your organization. Thanks, everyone, for attending.